I started buying and selling comics, believe it or not, on eBay. And,
Mm.
I kind of started doing that at not a high level at all, but for a high school kid, it seemed like it was working out pretty well for me.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is the Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the Closing Table. I am your host, Kevin C. McIntosh. And joining us on this episode, we definitely want to be thankful that we have the pleasure of speaking with another top producing real estate agent, Seth Harvell. How you doing, Seth?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Kevin?
Man, I'm doing just great, man. Thank you for asking. And like we always say to our guests, thank you for accepting our invitations and taking time out of your busy schedule to be a guest on the Closing Table podcast. We appreciate that. Now, we are here to talk about what's going on real estate-wise in your market. But before we get into that, let's go into an icebreaker. I got something for you called This or That, Seth. It's essentially a couple words, phrases, things all related to real estate. And I have two of them kind of contradicting to each other. And you just tell us which one you choose. And if you want, you could tell us why. You ready?
Okay. Yep.
All right, let's do this. First one, active listening skills or persuasion skills?
Active listening.
Okay, that's solid. Next one, starter home or forever home?
Forever home.
Interesting. Solar panels or traditional power source?
Ooh, That's a good one. Let's see. I gotta go solar panels.
I like that. I would do the same. I like that. Last one for you, resilience or assertiveness?
Resilience.
Yeah, makes sense. In an industry like real estate, I think that works best for you. So thank you so much, Seth. Well said, well played. We appreciate you getting things started off the cool way with our icebreaker. Now let's move forward and talk about you, Seth. I like to take time, more specifically about 60 seconds or less, for you to tell me and our audience who you are outside of real estate. You have the floor.
Well, I'm a family man, so I have a toddler and a beautiful fiance that I'm marrying here in less than 2 months. So that's pretty much what I dedicate
Congratulations.
my time to outside of real estate.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love to talk to family men and fathers and husbands, man. It's a beautiful thing, being responsible and taking care of your tribe, man. Love to see that and hear about that. Good, short and sweet though. Love that, Seth. So let's get into the business part, starting off with where you do your business, your market. I want you to describe it for us. Two-part question, sir. One, describe it geographically. Give as much details as to the area that you are in, notable attractions, things to do, etc. Secondly, get into some of the real estate details, economics, the average price points, time on market, any information you have for us, please.
So I serve Southeast Michigan. I serve pretty much Wayne County, Oakland County, and Macomb County. But I hyper specialize in Downriver, which is where I grew up. So Southgate, Wyandotte, Woodhaven, Trenton, Gibraltar, those kinds of cities, just because I kind of know almost every neighborhood there. So anything that's north of Detroit, I can service as well. But most likely I'll be doing all of my deals in the next couple of years, kind of hyper focused in the Downriver area. I do kind of
Mm.
stretch my arms out into the Ann Arbor area as well. I worked over there for a couple of years when I wasn't in real estate, so I have a pretty good knowledge of the area there as well. As far as price point, downriver is usually around like anywhere from like the 2 to 400 range, depending on what city you're in. Average days on markets, pretty average, anywhere from 15 to 30 days right now. What we're seeing, anything that's
Okay,
like
okay.
anything that's like super move-in ready is flying off the market like hotcakes, kind of like
Yeah,
everything else is.
yeah, yeah.
But typically you're seeing your 2 to 4 weeks where we're getting good offers.
Mm. Now that's interesting because I'm assuming it wasn't like that, let's say even earlier this year. It was probably a shorter time span that the properties will be on the market. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we're still seeing that. We're just seeing a lot less
Hmm.
homes that are, perfectly move-in ready that are hitting the market. I mean, probably in the
Really?
next couple of
Really?
months. Yeah, probably in the next couple of months, we'll see a slowdown of what we're getting into. But
Okay.
as far as anything that comes on the market that's like ready to move into, and you have that certificate of occupancy ready, those things are flying off the market within a day or two. So
Yeah, I can understand that.
it's really the homes that are kind of stretching out, that are kind of the anomaly, that are making that average market on market time a little bit more than it actually is, if that makes sense.
I get it. Okay, okay, I get it. I get it. I've also heard you brought up Trenton too. I literally just recently saw this, if I'm not mistaken. USA Today marked Trenton like one of the top 10 hottest markets for real estate in the country, if I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
mistaken. Do
crazy.
you have
Yeah.
anything to say in regards to that?
I actually just saw that today. That's funny that you say that. I actually have
Mm-hmm.
a listing that went live today in Trenton, believe it or not. And that I saw another listing that went live, and it said the same thing, that it's one of the hottest zip codes
Yeah.
in the nation.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little familiar with the Downriver area, not too familiar. I stayed in Brownstown for a few months,
Okay.
a little while back. So I just know it as being like a real chill, laid back type of area. Now I wasn't like out mingling with people as much. Kind of just kept to myself, went to work and came home. But it was very peaceful out there, nonetheless. That's how I would describe it as someone who, just been there a few times. But
Yeah.
yeah, great. It's a very unique market out there. So thank you for that description and giving us a little bit of insight into that market. So you as a professional, doing what you do as a real estate agent, a lot of your work isn't necessarily broadcast out there to the public. Some of your daily tasks. So if you can, I want you to kind of take us into your life. Walk us through the process of the day for, let's say, one of your most recent work days. I know your days kind of switch up every routine, but walk us through what you do from morning to night on your most recent work day.
So my daily routine usually consists of, from 8 to noon. All I'm doing is outbound business. So I'm trying to generate business for future, or get
Hmm.
so I'm pretty much making phone calls from 8 to noon is what I'm doing. And that consists of prospecting for new listings, or prospecting for clients that are looking for listings. I know that a lot of times right now, with the houses that are hitting the market, like we said, they're coming off the market as soon as they hit. So if I have someone that's looking for something specifically, I'll try to get them a place that's off the market, so there's not as much competition, and that'll be executed during that time.
Well, just for clarification, what is considered off the market?
So something that is not currently active on the MLS or on Zillow, so anything that's completely off the market, whether it's vacant and getting rented out. A lot of times there'll be people that, actually, right now we're in a time where people own the most homes that are paid off. I don't know how to word it, where the way it's in my brain, but there's more homes paid off
I
now
know
than
what
there
you
ever
mean.
was, right?
Right,
And
right.
and so a lot of those people are either, taking their equity out, or thinking about doing it and downsizing, or if they had it rented out, just cashing out, since the market's so high right now. And that's what I usually do from 8 to noon, to see is try to find those people. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Perfect.
Another question to that. You said you start off from 8 to 12, doing prospecting. Are you doing just cold calling, or is it a combination of cold calling and a few people who's showing a little bit of interest?
It's a combination. So from pretty much from
Okay.
like 8 to 11, it's all new, all pretty much cold calling.
Mm.
And then from like
Oh
11 to
wow.
11 to noon is usually when I talk to people that I've talked to in the past, or anybody that needs to get
Mhm.
um some loose ends tied up.
Interesting.
And then
Interesting. I wanted to ask that. Oh, go ahead,
Oh, okay,
please,
sorry.
please.
So from noon to 1, I take an hour break. I spend that time with my family, eat lunch, and then I'm usually back in the office
Yep.
from 1 to 3. And 1 to 3 is
Hmm.
most likely either doing any type of transactional work that I have to do, such as like negotiations, or getting a new listing ready. And then from 3 to 5, 3 to 6 is when I go and do listing appointments and
Yep.
showings.
I've heard similar similar stories from agents or guests who, kind of go into that same routine? In the morning it's more of like, office administrative work, calling and recruiting, prospecting. Then in the afternoons, for the most part, or evenings I should say, that's where you go to your showings and appointments and things of that nature. So I'm starting to understand that a little bit more. Everyone's routine is different for the most part, but there has some similarity. So thank you for sharing that with us and taking us a little bit into that. You recently hosted some public virtual engagements with a mortgage loan originator, Steve
Correct.
Frost. I saw
Yes.
that. Can you talk about what motivated you to start doing this, and why is it important for clients to hear about current market conditions?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Steve Frost is probably in my opinion, the best loan mortgage officer I've ever met. So he's a lot smarter than I am, and he knows quite a bit more than I obviously ever would about mortgage interest rates. And I mean, one of the biggest factors that's driving this market that we're in is interest rates. I mean, it's pretty much the talk of every single day. If you're on the ground and on the
Mm-hmm.
pavement, even in the news, we see interest rates kind of a headline of the news every single day. So me and him jump on every single week, and we talk about what's going on in the market and also what's going on with interest rates and kind of what they're projecting for the future, and kind of to see whether or not it makes sense for someone to move now or to go ahead and jump the gun.
Yeah. I watched a little bit of those, and I will say I love the information that you give. I love the focus that you're giving, and I can understand. Well, I can see a lot of people getting a lot of great information out of the sessions that you two have. Um, I forgot the follow up question I was going to ask that. Maybe I'll remember it and get back to it. But I want to ask you about a quote that you mentioned, and I got this from your social media page. You said, "quote If you're looking to buy your first home, you may want to consider condos." Condos. Let's talk about it. Why are condos a great option for first time home buyers? And describe a time you convinced a client to get a condo instead of a home that they were probably interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've lived in a condo before when I was a kid, and it was a good experience. And I was a first time home buyer just a couple of years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
with a condo, what kind of gets you to offer is obviously when you're young and you're just buying your first place. Usually you're kind of knees deep in work and raising kids and everything like that. And what a condo kind of gets to offer for you is to kind of worry about less headaches as far as repairs and yard maintenance and everything like that.
Mm. Mm.
So
Good point.
yeah, like a lot of times you don't really realize how much yard work can take out of your time until you have it.
No, no, that's a good point. So let me ask you. That's a great point. Some of the major things that you usually have to do with the home: the roof, the foundation, the windows, the AC slash furnace. Now, I'm not sure, but maybe you can answer this for me. Are those things that you don't have to worry about if you are purchasing a condo? You're a condo owner.
So most of the times the roof is covered under the HOA. The furnace and air
Okay.
conditioning typically not, as far as I know in the deals that I've done. But like maintenance on any exterior maintenance is usually handled by the HOA.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then
Okay. So you are still, for the most part, still responsible for the other big
correct.
repairs.
Yeah, and
Got you.
typically,
Got you.
obviously, a condo a lot of times is you can get something that's really nice for a lower price compared to what you could for a home, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And from my perspective, I feel like that's almost part of the circle of I don't want to say circle of life, circle of cycle of home ownership. You'll go into being a first time home buyer. You may want a home with a yard, a fence, and all this other stuff. Then as you get older, you become an empty nester. More times than none, they like to downgrade. They like to go into those condos
Yeah,
where they don't have to do that regular maintenance and take the garbage to the street and whatever the case may be. So I mean, I think it is a good thing to consider. I mean, it's also it's widely considered when you're going into your older age, but it is something to think about even if you're purchasing your first home. I've never thought of that, but I like the perspective that you bring with that. In your career, Seth, pretty sure you've had some hiccups. Pretty sure not every transaction has been perfect. maybe some things were done on your end where, you know, you had control, but it was a mistake, or let's say lesson. Your first transaction, first few transactions, any mistakes or lessons that you learned from then that you kind of take into your practice today?
Yeah, so actually, when I first started in the business, when I got out of high school, actually, so I got into the business in 2017. I was in it for a couple of years, and then I got out, and I just got back in the past year or so. And the first
Okay.
transaction that I had taken on myself when I had just gotten out of high school was a pretty big listing for my first listing. I think it was like a 275 or something like that. And I remember it was a referral, and I had looked at it and I got, overly excited, and I pretty much told the person what it was worth before I had gone to the property. And then when I ended up going to the property, it was in worse shape than I thought that it was in, and I had to pretty much put him
Mm,
back in his place, and not put him back in place, but put myself in my place and tell him that I was wrong, and I had to actually bring the price down.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, especially nowadays, I'm hearing that more and more. Well, I'm pretty sure it's always been the case, but how much pricing it at the right point in the beginning makes a
Yeah.
difference. Like, and that takes knowing the market, knowing the area, and things of that nature. I just recently saw another post from another agent somewhere where they had to reduce the price. And I didn't obviously get an opportunity to ask them, but I'm just automatically thinking, as soon as I see price reduced, I'm thinking, you priced it wrong. You priced it too high the first time. You're not getting the offers that you wanted. And as a result, you have to make your adjustments. Most of the time, I'm assuming it's under the seller's it's under their preference, I'll say. The seller prefers to sell it at whatever price point. And more than likely, it's outside of the agent's suggestion. I'll say that. So when I see those price reductions nowadays, I'm just thinking behind the scenes, what's really going on? Is the seller listening to the agent, and is the agent placing it this? So I can understand you know, going through the motions and, you know, learning about the pricing thing, because especially when you're starting off, you may not know exactly what you're doing with those prices and the CMAs and things of that nature. So appreciate that insight. You said that there are 7 most common mistakes people make that result in them losing out to another buyer when competing for an offer on a home. Talk about the mistakes and share a story where a client was going in the wrong direction, but you helped them avoid one of these 7 mistakes.
So the I didn't post all 7 of those things, but I'll just kind of go over one of them. And
Hmm.
and, and the second point that I have in that document is relying on Zillow, which is a huge thing that a lot of us do, including myself when I first started, and including myself when I first bought a house. I mean, that's the first place that everybody goes to, look. I mean, me and my
Hmm.
fiance sit in bed at night and we look at places on Zillow just for fun. And so, a lot of people will go straight to Zillow and they don't realize that there's other resources out there that could, potentially you can get to before it's on Zillow, if that makes sense.
Mm, interesting.
And also, there's another thing. Zillow has the Zestimate feature as well, and that's kind of
Hmm.
another thing that it gives people kind of false perspective of value of their house. And sometimes it's right, and sometimes it's even better than right. But there is a lot of times where it'll come in where it'll be a lot more than the person is what a lot more than what the property is actually valued at, and it kind of gives this
Hmm.
person a false sense of hope before they are consulting with an expert.
Correct. That is so crazy. I've heard the love stories. I've heard the not so love stories from agents against Zillow, and it's one of those tricky things in the industry that you can't avoid. It's just part of that, but you got to kind of deal with it. But I, I'm always curious as to where do they get that number from? Where do they get these numbers from? Because no one seems to agree with that number, and that seems to be that number that's misleading for a lot of people. That's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
Is why I'm bringing that up. So it's interesting that you relied on that, but you say you used to when you first started off. I want to kind of go back to that real quick too,
Hmm.
Seth, if you don't mind. You said you started the company shortly after high school, correct? So you basically knew what you were going to do after high school. Well, in high school, you knew what you were planning to do right afterwards, correct? Which is real estate.
Yes. Yep.
Where did that come from?
So when I started in it started, so when I was in junior year of high school, I started buying and selling comics, believe it or not, on eBay. And,
Mm,
I kind of started doing that at not a high level at all, but for a high school kid, it seemed like it was working out pretty well for me. And so it kind of just led me into, what can I sell that's, a big ticket item that's got more, a little bit professionalism behind it, where I didn't really have too much passion behind that. And
hmm
it was pretty much that I was at a comic shop one time, and they were offloading a bunch of comics that weren't worth too much money, and I bought a bunch in bulk and just sold them, individually or in small bundles. And so that worked out very well for me. So I just wanted to see where I could take that, and that's kind of how I got into real estate.
Wow.
Yeah.
You are built different, sir. You are built different. I gotta applaud you for that, man. Cause that just shows the natural hustler that's inside of you. Like for you to even connect those dots. Oh, they're getting rid of comic books. Let me buy those comic books and sell those comic books. And you didn't even have a passion for it, but it seems like you had more of a passion for sales or selling or that hustle mentality, if you ask me. And you translated that into one of the biggest businesses and industries that we have today, which is real estate. So I was interested to ask that because not everyone is thinking real estate after high school, man.
Yeah,
So that was very interesting. Second thing I want to ask you, you say you took a short break
I
and then
did.
you came back. What was that break, if you don't mind sharing that, and why did you come back?
So I mean, to be honest with you, straight out of high school, you're not the most mature person, and it just honestly, it
Yeah.
worked out. Yeah, it worked out for the benefit of me, in perspective when I look back at it. If I were to have the amount of success, um, right out of high school, I think that it probably would have ruined me, to be honest with you. I was too immature to
Ooh.
to handle it.
Ooh. I love that. I love that. Please continue.
So when I started with probably the biggest team in Michigan, and they were amazing. I've learned pretty much everything from them, and the coach that I have now also worked for them back when he started. And they took me under their wing and they treated me like family. And I was just so young and naive that I kind of hung around probably the wrong people in the place at the time, and it kind of just took me down this road that
Hmm.
I didn't really know that I was prepared for. So I ultimately just kind of made the decision to get out for a while. I ended up going and doing something else for a couple of years, and then I kind of found my way back here just in the past year, just because it's something that I've always wanted to pursue and make sure that I have a fulfilling career and make a good life for my family.
Love that, man. Listen, you know how mature that is to say what you said? Like you felt like you were immature, but you still made a very mature move. The fact that you say, who says that? Who thinks like that? I feel like I might be too immature for this success. That is a very like like you were thinking two steps ahead and then looking back. It's hard for me to explain it, but I see that as a very, very mature move for you to take that upon yourself to think like that. But wow, I don't even know too many people that would even say that. I think I'm too young for this success. But you know yourself.
Yeah,
You knew yourself. So I have to applaud you for that. You know how you would handle that. So man, that stood out to me, Seth. So I gotta applaud you for that,
I
man.
appreciate that.
Have you have you experienced a moment in any one of your transactions where you didn't feel safe? And if so, how did you handle it? And what preventable measures have you taken since then?
Mm, I don't know if I really have an answer for that question. I feel like I did before we started this, and then I don't. I'm trying to think back, and there's not really a place in a transaction where I felt unsafe. There's been places where I've
Hmm.
definitely felt lost. When you're a new agent, there's just so many things. Every single transaction almost seems like there's something new that you learn. And
Okay.
there's very vulnerable places that you'll be in. Sometimes in transactions when you just don't understand what's going on. And it's just about reaching
Hmm.
out to someone else that is on your team or that's by your side or that's raised you in the industry to make sure that you get back up, if that makes sense.
Got you. Got you. Oh. So no experience with walking into a home and seeing a homeless man or walking into a garage and seeing a monster. Nothing of that sort, huh?
Not yet, no.
Lucky you. Lucky you. And that's the first time. Because almost any other agent or guest I talk to, they have some crazy story about something they've seen in a home. So, hey man, good luck to you, man. Continue on that great safe path that you're on. I gotta apply. I definitely don't want, a safety first with everything. So that's really glad to hear. This is a question I feel like can give us a little bit insight into what motivates you, Seth. So I want to ask you, what movie, book, quote, philosophy, any content, information that you consume, that you live by, that you can share with us that helped change or shape you either personally or professionally?
Yeah, so actually I have a quote that I just found not that long ago. And it just makes so much sense for me because especially in the, instant gratification kind of culture that we're living in, it makes a lot of sense. Let me pull it up here.
Correct.
So I'm gonna butcher this, but it's Hofstede's law, and it pretty much states it always takes longer than you expected, even when you take into account Hofstede's law. So it's pretty much telling you that it's gonna take longer than you think, and it's gonna take longer than you think, even when you take longer than you think into consideration, if that makes sense.
Oh, wow. Okay. We just went down the rabbit hole with that one. And what law is that again? Say that one
Oh
more
man,
time.
I don't even know how to say it. Hofstede's law,
Okay.
Hofstadters.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for providing that. I'll do some research on that myself, and our audience could look it up too with that. So yeah, that is interesting though. Especially, it's very very relevant, especially in today's generation, the social media era, the age of
Yeah,
information, and like you said, the instant gratification world that we're living in now. Everybody just wants instant, quick, convenient, fast, easy, and some things take time. You can't cheat. You can't shortcut
yeah.
success. You can't cheat the system. You have to put in the work. There's no other way around it. There's no overnight success. So I could agree with that part of it. Other than that, you kind of lost me a little bit, Seth. It was a rabbit hole, but nonetheless, man, we appreciate you. Thank you again for pulling up a chair to the closing table, Seth. We appreciate you for sharing your knowledge. At this point, if you have any last words and or want to tell people how to reach out to you, please do so now.
I appreciate it. I am good. As long as you search up Seth Harvell on Facebook or the internet, I will pop up.
Absolutely. Well said. Well played. Thank you again, Seth. And for our YouTube audience watching right now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, please do us both a favor and hit the like button, please, and thank you. Make sure you also share the content and subscribe to our channel, please, and thank you. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, please do the same. Give us a like, 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. Seth, I'm also going to leave our audience with a question to get their brains turning before they leave the chat. So this is for you, audience. If you own a condo or you are interested in one, what factors come into play for you to make that decision to purchase or consider a condo over a single family home? Don't tell us right now. Leave it in the comments below. Besides that, we'll talk to you next time.